Hello and welcome to Banking Frontiers Live. This is a very interesting conversation we are going to have with the industry leaders of the fintech on collaborating and creating new ecosystems in the fintech sector. Welcome everyone. I would like each of the speaker to introduce themselves. Can I request you to please introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, this is Ankur Handa. I'm the co-founder of Lentra. That's me.
Hey, hi everyone. My name is Vimal. I represent Early Salary here, and I'm a Chief Business Officer at Early Salary, and we are a lending platform.
Hi everyone, I'm Vinay Pagaria. I'm the co-founder and CTO for Stockage and Elon Markets.
Hello everyone, I'm Preeti. I'm the founder of Lakshmi. Lakshmi is India's first financial platform for women, and we are on our way to become a neobank for women.
Hi, my name is Shabir. I'm from Oracle. I manage the Oracle Cloud infrastructure sales for the country for broadband.
Hi, my name is Sandeep Golesha. I am the founder of a company called Umera Technology. I'm also the India and MENA and Africa head for Unite Global, which is a bank-to-bank payments solution.
I'm Vivek. I'm the founder and CEO of Hotfoot Technology Solutions. We focus on financial inclusion and the ability to underwrite customers who do not have any documentary proof of income.
Wonderful. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to this wonderful conversation. What are the prospects for fintechs like you in your business in the immediate and long-term sector? May I request Sandeep to please start with this conversation?
Yes, so from a Unite perspective, I mean, we see a huge growth. The company's about to launch in quarter 4, and the sort of response we're receiving from banks at a global level has been, I would say, quite unprecedented. We have, I think we're one of the very few fintechs, or say, I wouldn't say fintech, but actually bank payment systems where we actually are getting tier 1 bulge bracket banks coming on board. Which is quite unusual for a payments business. You very rarely see a tier 1 bulge bracket bank, and I can say that we have at least 4 or 5 such banks, globally established, well known to our friends at Oracle, for example. So it's a very, very interesting time for us.
Wonderful. And how about you, Vinay?
So what we have observed, Babu, over the last 2 years is that there is a phenomenal growth in the number of new users who are coming and who are participating in their investment journey, right? So since we run 2 platforms, one is on education, the amount of number of hits you get on your YouTube videos whenever there is any financial awareness kind of a course that we put up, right? That is like unprecedented. And add to it the deeper penetration of mobile, right? In tier 2, tier 3 cities, there's a huge, huge amount of people who are still, to come. So I see clearly next 5 to 10 years, right? This is continuing to grow at an exponential pace for sure.
Preeti, let's come to your women-specific neobank that you are trying to create.
So I think I'm quite representative of the ecosystem here, being probably the only woman on the panel. And I think that sort of explains why we need a platform only for women, because it is still a male-dominated industry. And when we talk about fintechs and the purpose really of the fintech ecosystem, it is financial inclusion is one of the largest targets, right? I think jarring numbers, we did a report in Lakshmi very recently, which we've published along with Access My India, which tells you that only about 7% women, and this was across tier 1, tier 2 metro cities, across personas, only 7% women who are accessing, or who are saving money are making independent financial decisions. I think that sort of tells you the huge gap that exists there. To me, I think, before even addressing the women piece, I think I would divide the world of fintech users into 2, one that were not born into technology and one that are born into technology. And I think the future lies in one, including people who were not born into technology, And I think digitization, democratization of investing financial assets, that will quickly bring in a lot more people into the fold. I think people who are born into technology, it will be customer experience, it will be newer products, it will be the platform experience, which will evolve. Going forward, for all of this to happen, I see a lot of collaboration between fintechs. We had a pre-session before we came in here, and I think we already sort of discussed whether how we could collaborate to bring in or make every platform even better.
Vivek, would you like to share some perspective?
The view that we are taking is that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to replace all the incumbent banks which are there. And I think they have run their life. It requires an architectural overhaul, and the traditional brick and mortar model that is there is and so you've got banks, you've got NBFCs, you've got cooperatives, you've got wealth companies, you've got housing companies. It's fundamentally because of all the lacuna of the traditional brick and mortar model. So I think for all of us fintechs, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity where we can actually come together and replace the brick and mortar model. I think hardly anybody focuses on the customer. The customer experience is very, very, very poor. So those of us who focus on customer experience built on digital, I think there's a huge opportunity for us to replace the incumbents.
And Shabir, what is your thought? What do you see the ability or prospect for the fintech sector, and how are you working with them?
There are two kinds of people in this, as Preeti said. No, one is those who are born in technology, and those who are not born in technology. Similarly, there are those who are those large brick and mortar companies wherein they are slowly starting the IT journey. And for the fintechs, the advantage is that they have the advantage of technology. You talk about born on the cloud, you talk about technology leading some of the decisions. So which is a big advantage for the fintechs. So they are able to reach to that level, which took probably decades for the brick and mortars to reach. And that is also one of the biggest advantage of having cloud or hyperscalers. Let's say about 20 years back, a data warehouse or a big data analytics engine, we used to be the prerogative only of maybe an SBI or a Procter & Gamble. Others can't even think about it. But now even small cooperative banks are spinning up data lakes in actually hours. So this is, and I'm not exaggerating. That is the beauty of cloud. No, cloud is a big leveler in my advantage. But again, cooperative banks who were under the radar of RBI because they were not able to afford setting up a DR are now setting up DR effortlessly. They are setting up a full-fledged disaster recovery on cloud in weeks.
Ankur, any other thoughts from your side?
When I look at overall what's happening in fintech and probably what's happening in India, we've probably come out of a difficult phase in medium to long term. But I can say that growth is in the air when it comes to lending as a market segment. So I'm just talking about Lentra. We have built a modern lending platform that enables any bank to build asset workflows in a matter of weeks. Prospect of growth that we are enabling, and a lot of the fintechs, a lot of the CEOs of the banks and other places that I'm talking to, the prospect of growth that everyone seems to be excited about is the fact that how to enable STP, straight through processing, credit decisioning using alternate data. Right? How do we organize lending at all levels? Newer options thanks to technology are emerging, right? So we are looking at magic at bottom of the pyramid now, right? How do we build these embedded journeys, apification of everything that we can imagine? How do we build APIs so that lending journeys are just part of what you are trying to do? And overall, if I look at India as a story, the credit to GDP ratio for India has just touched 56%. We are way behind our peers. We are just half of what G20 averages. China, for instance, has a credit to GDP ratio greater than 160%. US is more than 200%, right? So in a growth economy like ours, where there's a massive space for all ecosystem partners to grow, and I think even better, the developing countries and India included we have a massive advantage of building new ecosystems without any burden of any legacy. So whether it is Aadhaar, whether it's India Stack, the kind of stuff that we are doing and what Indian fintechs are doing is an amazing thing. And I mean, I've spent 2 decades in working with Citibanks of the world, the Barclays of the world, and Bank of Americas of the world. I think everyone is just looking east, and they're all completely flabbergasted by some of the action that is coming out of India as we speak.
So what is the kind of scope that you find in the immediate and the long-term future?
The space which we are in is also interesting, and the banks wants to lend the money to the guys who have already access to other monies. So banks definitely would want to give someone has a credit card another credit card, but not give a new credit card to a customer who does not have a credit card. So that's an interesting piece, I think, so which we are solving, and I think so we have huge growth opportunity, and we have worked in last 6 years, learned a lot of things from those new segments, what we are tapping into. And so lending is one piece, I think, so where everyone wants to get into, but definitely lending is a different skill game also. It's not like opening a bank account. It's lending and collecting the money back as well within the RBI guidelines. So that's what I personally feel this segment. And since the India is also younger population, so a lot more population will come into the this segment, salaried segment. And that's where I think so they would need access to a lot of money flow in the early stage of their career. See, after 35 or 40, everyone wants to go after those customers. But when they start the journey, they would want to wait for someone to take the lead and then give the money to them. So I personally feel that this is a good space to be in, and we see a good growth opportunity, immediate as well as next 5 to 10 years.
Now let us go towards the regulations and compliance part of it. So how are you working with regulators and industry enthusiasts in creating a strong ecosystem?
I think in our journey has been quite, both my businesses are heavily dependent upon regulation. On the payment side, we typically have a myriad different licenses that we've had to deal with. So we've had companies that we have like EMI licenses, electronic money licenses. Unite is very unique because it's brought us into dealing with the actual central banks of every major country you can imagine. So getting approval from the central bank, is the methodology correct? Will they accept that methodology? And then them understanding the process flows, how the new account systems that we've asked them for. So all of that has been a huge learning experience and interacting with them and stuff like that. And it's very difficult, getting companies, getting central banks, not even companies, to look at both micro and macro issues and how they actually relate to payments, has been quite challenging. It's as alien even to me at the outset, and I've been doing payments for more than 10 years, so or 15 years nearly, I should say. So it's been something that has been quite a learning curve even from my side. And every day at the moment, we get new questions asked by the central banks of different countries, and it's extremely interesting. Because the way that Unite is set up, it has to work with the central banks in what we do, as well as the actual main bulge bracket banks that we work with. We have issues from liquidity, things like that. Even your payment. So what AML has to follow. What do we have to identify, not identify? 101 questions that we have to make sure. And this is just a bank-to-bank correspondent hub. It's an infrastructure for correspondent banking, and it's very, very difficult.
Ankur, you have been more from the lending space. How do you work with the regulators and the ecosystem?
On this question, I think there's no quick answer. I think you need to try new things. You need to try new ideas, and if you're going to fail fast, learn from it and move on. I mean, I'm talking about some of the proof of concepts we would do with Facebook likes, and whether can I lend someone on basis of that, and and a lot of social media feeds that we were doing in 2017-18, they're all probably behind us. And when it comes to regulators and industry players, privacy concerns, central bank licenses, social media, conscious check, all of these things come into the play, right? So at Lentra, in fact, we have taken a very different perspective. We have raised the bar by implementing what I call as the zero trust security. We address the data security for data at rest as well as for data at transit. While we work with some of the very, very large private and public sector banks, we've also enabled mid-size NBFCs and lots of fintech to operate their loan book on a platform that meets the standards of any large bank, right? So we are truly democratizing lending by enabling banks and fintechs alike to operate on a fully compliant software and an infrastructure stack deployed natively on the cloud. We have a module called Go Getter, which is integrated with 200 data sources in India. I mean, NSDLs of the world, UIDI, Aadhaar, credit bureaus, you name it. So the information cross exchange between all of these data sources has to be done in a secure, compliant way. And those things we have done in a very, very fundamental manner.
Vimal, anything specific you want to highlight from, since you have been a little different kind of fintech from the salary perspective and all that, is there anything else that you think is required to create an ecosystem of compliance?
So I think so. See, anyway, lending is one piece which is highly regulated, and after the fintechs have come in, I think so. The RBI also started looking at saying that how the fintechs are working in collaboration with a lot of these existing players, and that's why recently they have they have created a guideline for digital lending. So now at least the ecosystem has been recognized by Reserve Bank of India as well, saying that there is a digital lending also, which is there. And we at Early Salary has been in forefront in creating an organization called FACE. It's a fintech association of consumer empowerment, which is closely working with Reserve Bank of India and other people in the industry to make sure that the best practices are embedded in every fintech, every lending fintech specifically. FACE has also applied for SRO, for digital lending. So we are pretty close to working with the Reserve Bank of India, and I'm sure all these regulations which Reserve Bank of India is bringing will definitely also help in many ways to the industry as well.
Now, if I come to Shabir, how are you building an ecosystem of compliance and security, especially with the fintech partners?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And that is something which is actually helped Oracle over the last 2 to 3 years to grow at triple digits with the FSS community, the banking financial services community. Because what we did was, we again, as rightly as Ankur said, we adopted a zero trust policy. We actually redesigned our entire data centers and ensured that we are present in all the geopolitical locations in at least in a DC and DR. For example, in India, we are present in Mumbai and Hyderabad in 2 different seismic zones and 2 METI certified data centers. And so that from a data privacy perspective, security perspective, these offer bulletproof security. Now, second part is we also work very closely with all the global compliance agencies as well as the various attestation bodies to ensure that all the, for example, what Ankur was mentioning, your PCI DSS, all your ISO, all these security facets, including security at rest, in motion, all are baked into our Oracle Cloud infrastructure. We also go that extra mile to ensure that we even set up security zones for those customers who are security paranoid, if I may use that term. We have a concept called max security zone, wherein the moment you deploy on Oracle Cloud, you can set the max security zone and it will not allow you to go beyond the set secure practices. So security is not an afterthought for Oracle, because we not only have our IaaS and PaaS, we also sell our SaaS solutions on the same cloud. So it is a huge exposure for us if there is any security breach. So if you look at our compliance, right from in all countries where we operate, we are compliant on all the different security certifications, whether it's data privacy, whether it's adherent to all the, whether it's a FedRAMP in US or MITI in India, or you can think about any of the compliance certifications we are adhered to.
Great. So let's go to the next question about initiatives by ecosystems that have benefited the fintechs, especially to get into the next level of growth. So what are those kind of initiatives which you have been engaged with, which have substantially benefited? And do you think that these have also accelerated your growth globally to newer platforms, newer countries, and newer markets? I think I would like to put Vivek into this. Vivek, what has been your experience, especially when it comes to ecosystem partnerships?
They broadly fall under two categories. One is the initiative that the government has taken in terms of the ecosystem, and the second one is what a lot of other fintechs are doing. So we've actually collaborated with a lot of fintechs. So we focus on financial inclusion, and the biggest problem in this segment is data, right? And because there's inconsistency in the data, it becomes extremely difficult to, and that's what the example that you mentioned in terms of talking to the public sector bank, right? Is there's actually no data to. But today in the micro SME segment, in the affordable housing segment, in the micro transport segment, we've actually completely automated the process where the decisions are actually taken in real time. You click a button and you will get an eligibility, in return. But I think from a government perspective, what we are most impressed with are two things. One is the India portal. The government is actually trying to, today the ecosystem works in such a way where somebody actually applies for a loan, and after that, all the government benefits that they have to get, you have to report to the government and get in return. But today, what the integration that we've done with this portal, what it allows is, it allows people to actually apply for a loan, and all government subsidies and so on and so forth actually get channeled through this portal. This is one big benefit. And the second one is, for fintechs, it also solves the problem of distribution, which means that you don't have to actually go looking for these customers. So when this starts operating at scale, it actually gives you, solves the distribution problem, and also gives you valuable data that you can use, and also takes care of the subsidy problem. And the second one, I think, is the account aggregator and the OK network. I think that will truly transform the way data is available today and fix a lot of inconsistencies.
Sandeep, any interesting ecosystem play, because you are working with different markets?
I mean, I think going to what Shabir was saying, we do look at multiple different data centers. We are working with several banks as well to sit behind their infrastructure. So understanding their infrastructure, how the tunneling has to work, all of that. That's been one of the biggest challenges, if you can imagine, when you're doing bank grade payments at scale. Then it's about your infrastructure, how it handles, and also the sheer volume and all the threat assessments that we have to do, as well as meeting all the bank's security requirements and cybersecurity requirements, can be daunting. And it takes us a lot of time to actually implement our cloud infrastructure. At the same time, we also have our own dedicated boxes. So we don't even just buy anyone's rack. We actually have our own rack, which is completely made to our specs, and it's custom built for us. So I think another level of complexity that we add when you imagine that going into a secure data center of a bank, sitting behind all their technology, or going into a major data center where you've got, say, someone like an Oracle or IBM, running it. And then, but they don't have access to even swap out our hard disks.
Preeti, how have you been into the ecosystem play, and what are the new possibilities that you have developed with these ecosystems that around you?
So Babu, I'm going to just first talk on the opportunities here. And I think, neobank comes along, like you said, because there is just too many, for example, even the regulators, right? The number of regulators today, most of the people here are talking about lending, but that is one regulator, right? So I think here as a neobank, you have 3 and 4 regulators that you're working with. So I think putting that aside, in terms of opportunity. And I think I'm going to give an example of a typical fintech founder, right? We are, when we start off, actually hustlers, right? You try and get whatever you can to build the solution, because not everything, you don't have the, the funds or the means to build everything by yourself. And I think that's where the ecosystem has really come together, both, I think, public and private. So the India stack you have, or, even the Jan Dhan, for example, today, more than 75% women in the country have bank accounts. That itself just allows for a very simple penetration of a fintech product, right? So I think on the public front, then you have private players. There's the cloud, which just allows you to build very seamlessly, bring your solution to market very effectively. So I think all of those have been very, very helpful. It helps that right now the entire world is looking at financial inclusion, women getting included into the financial space. As well as sustainability, ESG. I think that entire ecosystem over the last 2-3 years has completely, changed at the way they are looking at, solutions that are garnered or catered towards this set of audience, right? I think so incubators, accelerators, mentors, funding, all of that has really come together in that space.
So Vinay, from your ecosystem perspective, what are the new ecosystems that have been helping you to take care and catapult your business to new level? On one side is education, on the other side is, trading. So how are you creating ecosystems around it?
See, there are two parts to it, as Vivek had mentioned earlier. From the government side, obviously, there have been certain steps. There is a lot to do there. For just to, quote an example, SEBI and NSE, the exchanges have come up with, SandBox, which is kind of a free lab that they would give to startups where they could innovate. So innovation sandboxes were provided by the exchange. So which is a very positive move, right? But then they came with their own set of qualification layers and, entry barriers. So not many people could actually use them. So I think there is space a lot to be done from government side as far as, the securities area is concerned. But the individual connections, right, that has started happening. For example, today, if I have to provide a transaction facility from my platform, I need not, create or become a broker. I can just connect with a Zerodha pipeline or a 5 Paisa pipeline, and through the APIs, I can, like payment aggregators, I can do with broking aggregators. But definitely, the ecosystems are helping. There is a lot of work to do in this area here.
Wonderful. How do you see cloud as an accelerator in experience or in technology there?
So cloud is a huge accelerator. I would say that the first thing that it brings on table for, new companies, new startups is that you do not need to start with a huge hardware cost and a setup cost and a big team to manage it, right? So as an entry perspective for new innovations to happen, you want to go to production, on day one, you get free credits and a lot of, new youngsters can come up with new ideas. So for the basic, the entry part, as far as acceleration is concerned, the next big benefit cloud offers to us is that, these auto scaling, load balancing, serverless computing, all of these have enabled us to handle scale, handle pressure, right, without being worried about it. So we recently had a problem where suddenly huge number of connections had to come in, and simply implemented serverless solution where the system will auto scale to 100 systems for that period of time made the entire thing a very, very smooth journey, which would not have been possible otherwise. Just to add one more thing here, that, these a lot of PaaS solutions being there are a lot of, add-on solutions around AI ML on the cloud, which are very easily available, which can be connected very easily with your data points. And the output that you can derive from that and, use that for personalization, as Preeti had mentioned, can give very good customer experiences.
Wonderful. Vimal, do you want to throw some light on how you are personalizing things from the salary perspective and needs perspective?
Sure. So I think see, customer experience and personalizations are, I want to say, you can have some parallels there, because customer experience also includes the personalization as one of the factor. So customer experience has been a paramount for us, and we always feel what is needed to the customer is what we offer to the customer. And so that's why we invest a lot on technology as well as the data science. So I would say we have 30-member data science team, 60-member technology team, to really see how we can give the best customer experience. And that and it's rightly said earlier that cloud had made it so easy for a lot of us to really, without worrying about the cost, without worrying about the capital investment, and without worrying about the human to manage these infrastructures. I think so cloud has made really a lot of these things easier for us to really work upon and make sure that customer offers are very personalized. And customers, what we offer to the consumer as a credit line or the loan amount is also personalized to the extent that he knows that this is what my need, and we don't ask the customer how much you need. Actually, we are able to identify his need and make a correct offer to him. So that is the kind of customer experience personalization which we have been able to make.
Wonderful. Sandeep, or any other team members, any other aspects of, analytics, machine learning, or personalization you would like to highlight, either in any of your businesses, be it payments or be it stocks or be it in the area of neo-banking?
I can talk about payments and how we're addressing the compliance issues at a global level, right? So we're now looking at reusable IDs, where we're actually allowing banks to write AML information to the IDs in a secure way, so that when we have to share AML and compliance information, it's relatively easy to do, because you have a unique identifier for one person which transcends the globe. That becomes very, very interesting. It becomes like in its essence, your bank account, but actually it's all your digital data, which is what I'm actually building at Umero. And that kind of, if you could imagine, you could have a woman from Priti who wants to borrow something, she wants to go to lending card or to Lentra, or she wants to go and do anything. All of that information is actually held in a single passport that we've created, and all of that. So that's a very interesting prospect. And when you can actually take that to a bank or to a large organization where they can actually standardize, it makes it super easy to actually move information from A to B to C to D, and actually capture all of that information. But at the same time, having multi-point authentication on things like biometrics. So we have 10 different companies that we can do the biometrics on. Bank can be agnostic, and the bank can choose, okay, I want to try this one today. Does this one work? Or this is our preferred supplier, so we'll use this one. So when you're on board, you have a way of doing it, but also then, you move to a more passwordless situation where I don't need this password or even using Face ID or the phones, because frankly speaking, you create a situation now where I could see onboard myself with one person. I've got my information on the ID. I go to another, I lose my phone. I can still log in through my friend's phone using my Face ID.
Interesting. Any specific area any of the panelists want to add before I jump into Shabir on this? Yeah.
Make a quick point, won't take too long. I think we've leveraged ML and cloud, and then we've come to a situation, we've launched a product which is in the lending space, which is called zero data entry, which means that the entire onboarding to disbursement process in our application, the user does not have to type a single key. It's completely image-based.
Wow.
And from the time a customer, for example, walks into a two-wheeler dealership, within 5 minutes, the person will know whether the person will get a loan or not. And not a single key is pressed. So we've actually leveraged the cloud as well as ML models that we've built. And it's easy to solve these for low-hanging fruit products like personal loans and stuff. But we've actually solved this for micro lending, affordable housing, where the biggest challenge at the bottom of the pyramid is the quality of data that you're able to capture on the system. So we've actually done away with the problem of somebody having to key in the data into the application, and we made our application completely image-based in terms of processing.
Interesting. Shabir, you have listened to a lot of interesting thoughts on how cloud, AI, ML, and security has been used. From your perspective, you have been working with various organizations in financial services and fintech both, and obviously, so you have been one of the largest DBMS providers, so you work with all the banks as well. So from your perspective, how are you empowering AI and ML in your cloud? And what are the new facets that you are bringing in into the cloud from Oracle standpoint?
So we have a family of products and services which we club under Oracle AI, and all the entire family of artificial intelligence and machine learning services that is completely available on our Oracle cloud. And any customer who enlists in our cloud gets access to our complete pre-built models for applications as well for their operations. So you can actually build, train, deploy models. We also have some pre-built examples also. For example, we work with a lot of financial services companies wherein we talk about AI-powered bots, which will help not only within their organization, but also customer facing, also internally. For example, we deploy it in 3 areas. One is for their internal help desk. Second, for external customer facing help desk. So plus for HR. So this is just one of the area. In addition to that, there are a lot of our financial services companies who actually use these models to develop various boutique offerings. That is from one perspective. From an analytics perspective, we actually give a horizontal autonomous data warehouse, which means again, which I'm talking about, how we are lowering the bar for all the new entrants. Earlier, you need to have either data scientists or database administrators. Now the entire data warehouse has become autonomous. So with the click of a button or a couple of buttons, you are able to set up that entire data warehouse, connect to various data sources, and start doing analytics.
Interesting. Ankur, what is your thought on what are the business ecosystems for the future that you would like to look into?
If I just reflect on what we are living today, what's prevalent is, dealing with uncertainty. I mean, none of us saw COVID coming, right? So it has been there disturbing our life for 2 years. Nobody said, still we all adopted. We figured out and hopefully we're coming out of it. So how to deal with uncertainty, shorten the time to market in anything we are doing, building scale seamlessly, and building stuff that always works. I mean, if you're building a platform, how to make sure it always works. So I can say for 2 decades, I was trained in Western economies to build a sturdy platform in an approach which was just converse, right? So when we laid the foundation of Lentra, we were absolutely sure to build our services on an open source modern tech stack and approach the Indian market with a completely SaaS approach, right? And I think what the future has got is an extension to this, right? And we all seem to be probably on the right direction. And the themes that I was worried about, or I would worry about when we were building our platform, would really be kind of event-driven architecture, how to design stuff which is reactive, non-blocking, eventual consistency, how to think about horizontal scaling, microservices-based cloud-native platform approach, front-end experience, the entire user experience. How do we build that? And how do we match that with a high performance and a very, very low latency that we need to respond to? Move away from the monolithic and traditional platforms and build kind of a new age infra. I mean, UPI probably has been a poster boy for all of us, right? I mean, the way it has scaled and the way it has done wonders, probably got fame for entire country, right?
Absolutely.
So I look at future through this lens, right? So I think I look at a future where we all operate through a fully compatible API stack, right? Where entities, organizations, institutions, they are talking to each other through open API stack and build the journeys which is relevant to them, in a way that it is fully compliant, privacy has been addressed, all standards have been adhered to, but we all help each other grow the ecosystem together, right? And I think that's going to be that's going to take some doing, but the good news is probably I would say we are 80% there. I mean, a lot of work that had to be done under the surface has already got there. There are a lot of engines of growth that we are all riding on. We kind of, we're coming out of COVID probably, and this is the time where we need to rise and we need to make sure we go forward with the momentum.
Wonderful. Preeti, you have been an ecosystem player, or you have to be an ecosystem player. There is no choice about it. So what is the ecosystem of the future that you are going to look at? And if you want to share anything about the tech ecosystem, wonderful. Otherwise, at least the business ecosystem of the future.
I think the reason I'm not going to speak about the tech ecosystem is because it is running faster than really for us to find a problem for that solution. And I think just the entire way in which, and this is not just of course, everything that Ankur has just mentioned, but even futuristic, right? You have people building on Web3 or Meta, and which is probably where most of us have not even sort of looked at way ahead. I think the challenge on the business sort of ecosystem, particularly in the wealth tech or the the space that I am in the neo-banking, is one, I think, regulatory collaboration. Fintech collaborations happen, but the regulatory collaborations also need to sort of come together, because otherwise a lot of people like us, or providing, or attached to different regulators, really struggle. We spend a lot of time in sort of sorting out, how do we get this going, because this regulator says this is the way to do it, and then the next regulator says, sorry, that won't work. So I think that is one thing. Policy continuity, I think, is another thing that I would particularly sort of look at. And I think I keep saying this all the time. I think as founders, as entrepreneurs, I think we go out and find solutions. Otherwise, whichever is in our control. So I think Vivek mentioned that data is a problem for us. Just to find data of, there's broad data of financial inclusion, but if you had to segregate and say women and financial inclusion and saving, spending, investing habits, it was just not available. So I think that we solved. We went out and did that, found that data ourselves, right? We created that. So I think most of it we find solutions to as fintech founders. I think there are a few that I think is completely out of our control, but we are very, very reliant on those. So I think, to me, those are probably a few areas. But overall, I would say the ecosystems are amazing, and I think they are a great time. It's a great time to build anything, and not just fintech. I think any tech product right now.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thanks, Preeti, for that comprehensive perspective that you have put in. Vimal, from your side, any expectations from the ecosystem of the future?
I think on the business side, definitely, I would appreciate our regulator have been very proactive in taking a lot of these decisions. I would really give a lot of points to regulators as well as to government ethics. So we are here because government has done many things to be here, because we are they have done a lot of groundwork for all of us to be talking about digitization. But having said that, I think so there are a few things which again, it is at very nascent stage. One is account aggregator is one thing which I feel probably it might take a couple of years to really take that more UPI moment. But I personally feel account aggregator is one piece which could lead a completely a different scale in the lending, and not only lending. I would say it is also about the account aggregator is not only about lending, it is also about wealth, it is also about stocks, it is also about everything. So the vision is very large. I feel I'm very gung-ho about that, and in next 2 to 3 years, I hope that it takes a lot of shape which all of us can really utilize upon.
Vivek, from your side, any interesting perspectives other than the ones we spoke about?
I think the ecosystem is running ahead of its ahead. I cannot think of one area of the space that we work in, which is lending, where innovation is not happening. And every day, I think policy consistency is extremely important. I'll just mention two examples. This switch on, switch off problem that we have, for example, with Aadhaar, right? They say use it, then they say don't use it. Then RBI says use it, then UDAI says no, don't use it. Then Bureau says send the Aadhaar number. Then the regulator says don't send the Aadhaar number. Then they say mask it, leave the last 4 digits, don't mask it. It's complete chaos. And I think over the last 5 years, right, I can tell you there's an enormous amount of investment that is everybody who invested in, for example, biometric devices for sourcing, completely junked, can't use it. Banks have access to it, NBFCs don't, right? So policy consistency, I think, is very critical for us to actually leverage this. Another classic example is CKYC. We upload enormous amount of data into CKYC, but we want to retrieve, you don't get it, really don't get anything, right? And I think that is kind of getting fixed. So I think those areas, if there is some amount of change, it will help. And for the future, from an ecosystem perspective, the way we see this entire thing panning out is, I think self-origination will disappear. And I think all lenders will get dependent on channels. And today, from a lending perspective, DSA is not just going to be your channel. You cannot really sit back and think who, for example, Zomato can be your channel. Swiggy can be your channel. Ola can be your channel. So I think that's the way that the distribution problem will get solved. And if we see, if we can get a placeholder for this kind of an origination, because today also there is regulation saying you can actually source a deal through a channel, but the bank essentially has to do all of the KYC itself. It's like a deal breaker, because we do everything, and eventually the bank has to do it just for the sake of regulation, right? So trying to identifying that the channels will change. People really don't want to go to a lender or to a wealth company or to a bank to do something. They would prefer to, for example, Lakshmi's company, right? They would just prefer to go there and do everything, enabling us from a regulatory standpoint and not excluding us on a selective basis. I think this is the only thing that will hold us back, quite honestly. But otherwise, I think it's fantastic.
Vinay, your side, have you got anything from the stock markets, from the capital markets perspective to share?
So I just have a grand vision for the future that today, with open APIs, as we say, we can connect with anybody, right? A lending platform can connect with an investing platform, and we can deliver it through a food delivery platform, right? So that's really something, great. But what I envision is, all these integrations that we are doing, right? Because I belong to technology background as well, I see a lot of technical debt getting created in your systems because, every integration is customized in nature. When I connect with payment gateway A versus I connect with payment gateway B, there's an entire separate, connections, separate security procedures. Everything is different. I see everything converge, right, into some standards approach. Like it's a little difficult to achieve, but I think if a positive step is taken in this direction, I think RBI has been pretty good to have, keep everyone on the same board. So UPI, everyone follows a common structure. But in securities market, it's still very, very different. If I have to connect with broker A versus broker B, if I have to connect with exchange A versus exchange B, if I have to derive data from mutual funds, there is no standardization. So I feel standardization will enable a lot of, problems being solved every day, right? The same problem is being solved by thousands of tech people, in every company, every day. Any kind of standardization will help us, utilize that time to create innovative solutions.
Fantastic. Shabir, would you like to share this vision for the ecosystem of the future?
See, what our vision is, we want to continuously break the glass ceiling. So whatever our infrastructure or cloud is actually in 3 areas. One is we continue to build a rock solid infrastructure as a service with a better price performance. for which we bring in innovations like off-box virtualization, custom security chip, so that there is a zero trust approach, RDMA cluster networking for all our compute intensive workloads to ensure microsecond latency, a complete flex infrastructure, built infrastructure up, and ensuring that security is built right from the concept itself. So at any point of time, the infrastructure doesn't fail. Now, the second important part is we also package it with all the modern cloud innovations, which is required for the new age fintech. So, as what we have all discussed, your interfaces and automation, API management, machine learning, serverless, containers, streaming, all these things. So, and that is something which you get in any of the modern cloud, which obviously will need to be included. Now, the third most important part is the backend infrastructure is something which we are moving to autonomous. So the underlying operating systems, VMs, databases, we have gone to the level wherein we have achieved near autonomous operations with that. So most of our autonomous infrastructure, including our autonomous Linux, autonomous database, our HeatWave, all of them are managed self. You can actually set it up. It automatically scales. It automatically patches. And it ensures that it does the horizontal vertical scaling by itself. As a business innovator, you don't need to be worried with the mundane plumbing, if I may put it so crudely. That is something which you would want to offload to a technology provider like us. So that's.
And what about this application securities? Because everyone has a different application. So how are we going to ensure a consistent application security? I think that is something which one of the attendees have asked. What is your strategy to keep the application data safe from cyber attacks?
Wonderful. So that is also one thing what we do. So if we, again, as one of our participants said, security is actually paramount. So completely, if you look at it, we actually design the security right at the application level, identity and access level, also ensure that all the corporate security and privacy practices are followed. So we have an 8-level security right from the perimeter till the application core. And at no point of time, your networks are shared. You have a complete zero trust. So security, if you ask me, is like a raison d'etre for us rather than an afterthought for a typical hyperscale.
Interesting. Thank you very much. We look forward to more and more insightful conversations with each one of you in the future. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.